Welcome to Art Crush with artists Fee Marks and Paula Telizyn, where we talk about being an artist in 2026, having a successful art business, navigating the art world and the world as it stands right now, which is very topsy-turvy, and more. Hello, Fee.
Hi, Paula, and hi to all our listeners.
Yeah, actually, this is a great time for us to thank everybody once again for listening, subscribing, liking, sharing, and engaging with us. Because we were just looking at our stats and we are seeing growth again. So clearly, we're saying something that resonates, and we recognize that it takes time and attention to listen to a podcast. And so we would just want to say how much we appreciate your time and your attention.
And carry on sharing it. Any people, I mean, I say female artists, obviously, but I think a lot of what we say would resonate with a lot of women in whatever business they are involved in, and some men as well. Obviously, they are not excluded.
Yes, yes, but we are speaking from the point of view of our lived existence, and our lived existence also includes community. So, if you've been following this podcast for a while, or if you've been poking through previous episodes, you'll know that Fee and I are part of an artist collective we created in January called the 51%. And it consists of Fee, myself, and Canadian artist Yella Proncic and British artist Susan Gardner. So we have our first show coming up in October. But before we created the 51% collective, we actually were in a community together, and we had come together because of a program that I was running, but we stayed together because of the space that we had cultivated or fostered between us.
I know in the last episode we talked about sometimes if you're in a community and that momentum is great and you're all egging each other on and celebrating successes and setting goals, as soon as it ends, you feel very much on your own. And it is so easy. I can put my hands up here. It is so easy to let things slip. You think you're still doing the same stuff, but you're not. I mean, I've been fortunate because I've worked with Paula for 6 years. So she makes sure that I don't forget. But you need to have that. I have always recommended to any artist, yes, get yourself a mentor. It's not something weird. It's actually something that you desperately, desperately need. Or get yourself into an art community where your ethos, your belief system, your mindset is all the same, because there you can egg each other on. We all know, and I know there's probably been a huge impact since COVID of all the people working at home. They need to go in, they will miss that community. Doing it on Zoom is great if you can't meet in person, but meeting in person is even better.
I agree, absolutely. The right community can build you up and keep you going. The wrong community will make you jaded, angry, resentful, jealous, and hold you back. There really is this truth of the bad apple spoils the bunch. And when I had decided years and years ago that I was going to be a professional artist, this was it, blah, blah, blah. I looked for the local communities for me to join. And there were a couple of them. One was a guild and one was a community. And when I went in, the negativity was overwhelming. The feeling of the jealousy and the anger and the bitterness was really overwhelming. And seeing the kinds of shows they put on where they were selling their paintings for $30 and all of that Canadian dollars, and then, if somebody dared to sell their painting for $100, people would whisper at each other like, "Oh, who does she think she is?" and whatever. I knew that that was not the community for me. Neither of those were. And so I left and vowed never to be part of an artist community again, and yet I still ended up because humans need community. I ended up in an online, very closed mastermind community, which worked for a while.
Being in the wrong community, as we've all known, when you've got the wrong friends, you're in the wrong course, the wrong college, the wrong school, whatever, that is more damaging than anything. Have that discernment about who you want in your life. It's the same when you're looking for somebody to be in a relationship with, if you so wish. Find somebody who enhances your life, not drains you. Well, that's the same with any community, any friendship. It's got to be an asset. Otherwise, you are wasting your time and your energy. I hear it all the time of people say, yeah, but it's always the same people who do all the work and then other people just, come along and they expect other people to make it happen. But you've got to all be right. I'm going to do this. It's not somebody bossing you around. It's just automatically right. I'll do this. I'll do the you do yeah. It is a community, commune. Those are the key words. If you're not in a community, you're in an organization that's doing you dirty.
Yeah. There's a lot of Facebook groups, for artists I've been in and I've removed myself from, and I go back in and remove myself from because they are full of ridiculousness. People who say, "I need help selling my art," and then they don't actually want any help selling their art. And people who are trying to sell their art, and then other people comment, like, "If you sell your art, you're selling out," and all that. Like, having a community where it's a small core group of people where you can show up as yourself. So if you are a bit distracted or you show up with a million ideas and you speak a million miles a minute and people just take you as you are, that's a community to be in. But then taking that further, when you are having good days or bad days, there is that natural support for both sides of things. Not just the support for your wins, but your, okay, you're having a rough day. Here, just vent for a minute and now let's get on with it. That kind of community is invaluable. And the ones that also don't just agree with you, because that's really damaging as well. So every idea apparently you say is great and wonderful. No, then you end up with an ego the size of, I don't know, an orange tangerine and problems, creating problems in the world. Or, like you have a community where you say, I want to try something. What do you think? And then they go, well, have you considered this aspect? Or are you sure that's the place you want to go? So I was talking with a client yesterday, and she was saying, "Well, I'm finishing this big project now. I'm really excited. Now I want to go in a completely different direction." And I was stopped her and I said, "Look, like, are you sure that that's the direction that you want your art career to go in? That seems like wildly out of left field." So imagine somebody who is, say, a sculptor, and now suddenly she wants to do just paintings. That's the kind of direction she was going in, wildly different, and different subjects and everything, and so we discussed it out, and, she realized that that was just her brain going, "Oh, thank goodness I'm done a project, I wanna do anything, anything's open." So, she was able to rein herself back in. Now, if she had been in a community of more than just her, and I was in there, I would still call her out on that.
Yeah.
That's just part.
And we do it to each other, don't we,
Yeah.
Paula? I mean, when I first knew Paula, I was because I was still in my people pleasing zone and I'd been in education. I just did as I was told. That's not true anymore, is it, Paula?
No, 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 that's very annoyingly not true, but yes. Yes. So our community of 4 people is a good one because as Fee said, it's not just one person leading, right? I'm there for the marketing support and everything else and website support and whatever, but I also get support with my art and feedback on direction and everything else. And as we prepare for the show, we've each taken on roles of planning and prepping and legwork and whatever makes sense for the person. For example, Fee knows the gallery in person. She's able to talk with them. I'm in Canada. I can't talk with them except on Zoom. So she is a liaison kind of thing. We all do the work to support each other. If somebody has a technical question, so Yella and I both in Canada, our artwork is going to be different sizes, dimensions than UK frames allow for. So we've had to sort of go back and forth both with, Susan and Fee, but also me and Yella figuring out what's the best approach for us with our art to make sure it looks good in the gallery next to Fee and Susan's. Like, there's a lot of aspects of community. It's not just support, but it's also logistics. It's also, getting an outside point of view. It's also just knowing that you're not alone in this journey. If you are stumbling, if you've changed your price points, if you are looking at a different ideal client, things will slow down in sales. So going back to community and saying, actually, right now is a little bit shit. and the community can say, "Okay, it's not in your head. This is you did this, and this is what to expect, and, keep going, you've got this." That "keep going, you've got this" is really important.
But we keep mentioning the word momentum, and that's exactly what it is. If you don't have momentum, then you and your business are going to just screech to a halt. And that's why it is really challenging, particularly if you are not a full-time professional artist, because which many people aren't. I mean, even as a full-time professional artist myself, I still have side hustles that are to do with my art, but I run workshops, I mentor young people. It means that I cannot dedicate every single day to painting, which is is the dream. This is what I want to do, but I know that's my priority. So I think as artists and many other businesses, you wouldn't be running it like that. You wouldn't be having to do the side hustles in order to create your art. But that's what you do, even when you're professional. And it's being really, really clear and having that support and being with people who understand that. So they know you're not being lazy, you're not sitting around. If you haven't done something, it's like, okay, let's support you. How can we make this happen? How can we help you get this done? Because it's a stumbling block at the minute, and we understand that your time is precious, but maybe if you do it at this time or whatever.
Yeah, that outside perspective makes all the
Problem solving together.
Yeah, yeah, exactly, and just that support. So, if you can't find a community, you can make a community, and it's not that hard because you're not necessarily putting it out and saying, "Who wants to be part of my community?" You wanna keep it to a small, small, small group. So, I've been in communities of different sizes. I would say that 6 people maximum is reasonable. Beyond that, you end up with people won't have enough time to share or get help or anything else. There's been more time spent moderating and managing somebody's ego or whatever. You have to have, I think, a period of time before you even form the community where people get to know each other. So maybe you have a probation community or something so that you get a sense of what their values are because your core values need to match. And you could be listening and thinking, well, what does politics have to do with it? Well, politics and core values, unfortunately, align because that's how they've been set up in this
Mm.
decade. And so you need to make sure that you are rubbing shoulders with people who share the same core values with you, whatever they are. My values matter a hell of a lot to me. And how I view the world and how I move through the world is very, very socialist, very leftist. I believe that we should be able to exist without needing to feed the capitalist beast. And so when I look for people who share those values, who think that no matter who you are, you have value. And when you create a successful community, those base core values matter. There's lots of tests online that you can find out what your core values are. Are they financial? Are they freedom? Are they whatever? But also what your moral values are as well, and make sure they're aligned. And ask the hard
Uh,
questions.
yeah, it's bearing in mind that's the key thing, that your belief systems are similar, not the art style. Like there's these associations for watercolor artists, for this type of artist. I don't get that. How you're just going to end up with lots of people who are very, very different and have very, different ideas for their business, what they do. Just because they all do watercolors, why would you bring them together? What is the benefit of having a watercolor society? I just don't know. If anyone can enlighten me, maybe you are part of an oil painting group or a sculpture group. You can explain to me how does that benefit you, just being around people who are doing a similar genre, because you won't even be doing it in the same way.
Yeah, yeah, that common mediums are not enough, I think, for a group. You're absolutely right. And I spent much of 2025 going through all the various groups between Canada and the UK for the guilds and the communities online and offline, and the mix is just wild. I think that we need to make communities on a more personal basis. The
And also,
commonality
you often have to
girls.
pay.
Yeah.
I have looked at the Society of Women Artists. I think, well, gosh, I would fit in really well there because obviously I paint women, I am a woman, I talk about women's issues. But then it's like, oh, the process to become a part of that is ridiculous and there is finances involved. So you can be an associate member for this much, but you can only be a proper member if you pay the full whack. That's just wrong. You want to have interesting women artists in there, not the people who've got the most money. That's going back to the elitism that we've talked about in the past, and which still exists today through societies.
It makes a difference to be aware of what barriers there are to artists who might otherwise want to join. So the communities I've historically belonged to have had a price barrier to them. And the idea behind that is to cover any kind of costs, so website costs or whatever, administration costs, but it's also to ensure that the people who join are serious. But it can be a barrier, especially when we're in a cost of living crisis for a lot of people right now. So one of the, networking groups I belong to, the fee is there, but fee is so affordable, it ends up not being a barrier to most people, right? It's under $200 Canadian, which is, you can write that off as a business expense. It's great. It's fantastic. And that I think is fine. But if you're talking about a fee of, £500, £1,000 or dollars or whatever, as a lot of networking groups are, and a lot of other communities are, it really does create that barrier.
Yeah. And also, they will say often, we can then feature your artwork on our website. I've never, ever sold anything through somebody else's website. So that's why I choose to focus on my website and driving people to my website, not somebody else's website. So that is not a boon to say, oh, your art, you can pay and you can feature on our website. Okay, thanks. What an honor.
Yeah. Yeah, it comes back down to what do you want from community? What do you need from community? Do you need to be part of a large group that supposedly has the reach, which a lot of them don't, but they like to exaggerate? Or do you want to be part of a group that gives you that kind of support to help you make decisions in your career, but also to help you through the highs and lows. Like, what is your goal for the community that you want to be part of? What are you lacking? Because typically, not always, but typically, artists tend to be the only one in their family group or the only one in their friends group. So they don't have that community built in. Even in my own family full of artists, I didn't fit in with because there was generations difference. I was the artist, in my generation, Generation X, but the artists in my family were silent generation and older. So there was that big gap of nobody else was an artist. I
And as
couldn't
and
relate to
as
them.
we keep saying, just because 'cause you're an artist, you're not all the same.
No, you're not.
Every single there are people from every section of society who will be calling themselves artists, which is great, as they would be so many people calling themselves teachers or nurses or doctors. It's not the thing. That is the skill that is bonding you, but not the ethics, not your belief system, not your mindset.
Yeah, yeah. So I guess what we wanna say is that you probably should have some level of community. Make sure it's a community that allows you to grow, accepts you as you are, is small enough so that everybody knows each other, and you have very clear goals as to what you wanna get from that community and what you can give to that community, how your presence enriches others and how their presence enriches your own life. And asking those questions will allow you to create more success in the communities that you're in.
Something that you just said made me think that you are giving to that community as much as you are receiving.
Yeah.
Because there are people who think it's all about what I get, not what I give. And that's what makes a difference between a community and a society, perhaps. The fact that everybody's role is equal. You might have different jobs, but you are equal and you need to support people as much as you get, and then you will get all the love and support back again. So that is what makes a successful community.
There's a community that, I followed for a few years. I'm very aware of them and everything else, and they're beyond the maximum sort of 8 people. I don't remember how many are in there now, but they have petered out because there's only been a couple of driving members, and the rest of them are riding the coattails or letting other people sort of take the lead and bear the work. And it's really interesting to watch that happen. I could see it from when the community formed that that was gonna be the ultimate outcome, but you let things play out and just see what's going on with that. This is where we have to be and why we have to be aware of our giving and our taking. Because if you want to create that success, then it has to be a two-way street for sure, for sure. So, do you think, Fee, that your life has been enriched by being part of a community, your creative life, your personal life,
Uh,
all of that?
I cannot overestimate enough how my success has been always about being part of a community that has kept my drive going. But it's also, I think we said in an earlier podcast about how the podcast had affected us personally. And it's about, yes, because we're getting together and we're discussing ideas and we are growing and learning. I've always been into you are a lifelong learner, and that is not just lip service. And when you are an artist, it is even more important that you are ready to change, you're open minded, you have that dialogue. I know I learn best through dialogue. I'm not somebody who can read something and go, okay, right, that's it, I'm off. I know what I'm doing now. I actually need to have that dialogue and question things. And if there's something I can't understand, clarify, but also remain positive. And that's the other thing that's really, really important within communities. Because when Paula mentioned that, one bad apple, it is very easy to start getting moany, and I've seen it in communities. One person can be the moaner, and it affects everybody because people become then scared to be positive because they think they're going to be attacked. And so the community has to be positive. I know if I had never met Paula, never been part of a community, I certainly wouldn't be painting what I'm painting now. I wouldn't have the opinions that I have now. And I probably wouldn't be an artist. But it's crucial. It is so crucial, and I wish again that more people were aware of it. When Paul and I go out and about, that is what we do. When we talk to people, this is what we say. Hey, listen to our podcast because I think you would resonate with it. I think you would be part of this. And as Art Crush and the 51% grow, we would like to see more and more people coming on board and but forming their own support groups, but also with a similar look and ethos to what we talk about.
Yeah, I was just thinking we'll have thousands of people now, and I just got overwhelmed.
No, I mean, you know what I mean. Just like and just following the advice, really, and
Yeah. Honestly, like, if somebody gets an idea to form a collective or do shows or whatever, or run a podcast and have conversations based on what they've heard here, knock yourselves out. Knock yourselves out. Go for it, absolutely. Because we don't own these ideas. We're
no, we will be cheerleading you. You are not our competition.
Yeah,
We want you
exactly.
to succeed.
Exactly. We want you to succeed. We want you to create the business or the goals or the outcomes that you desire for your life and for your art. And also to feel like you belong to something. Humans need to belong to a group, a community, a circle, a collective of some kind. That's just really important to us. And it has been throughout history for our species. So leaning into who we are and how we are will help you create the most success possible. So I think that that wraps up this episode of the power and positive outcomes that communities can create when they are the right communities.
And if we haven't convinced you and you still have questions, pop them in the comments below and we will get back to you. And also share any great communities that have really supported you and your artwork or whatever art form you use. Um, Let us know about it as well.
Yeah, because we don't know everyone and everything on the planet, shocking. But it would be interesting to see how other artists have come together to create that success because it is a journey that I think is really unique when it comes to being an entrepreneur. Being an artist entrepreneur is a very unique space to be in. And our businesses have unique needs, and we have unique needs as creatives who feel deeply and care deeply about what we're creating and who we're creating it for. So, yeah, a comment and share and like. You can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Audible, Amazon, and your favorite podcast platform. New episodes come out every Saturday, and we will
Woo!
and we will catch you in the next episode.
Bye.